Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. I'm the host, T Money. Today, I'm going to be doing a boxing recap on the Edgar Berlanga versus Ahmad Shiraz fight card. So, to get this fight card started off, was David Morrell versus Imam Kataev around about at 175 light heavyweight. Now, I know David Morrell just coming off that loss against David Benavidez, trying to get that bounce back win, and Imam is a pretty good Russian. He only had 10 fights up until this point, so first couple rounds was early fill-out rounds. The second round is when the action really picked up, and both fighters really got to exchange and blows with each other, and I kind of seen Kataev really trying to set up a right hand. Had a nice jab working for Morrell, and for the most part, those early rounds was really like a fill-out round. Kataev was really landing that right hand. He was a way better boxer than I thought. He looked a little fatigued, a little gassed, like his condition, and didn't really keep up with him. And David Morrell was getting hit a lot in between those exchanges. So for the most part, it was an exciting fight. And around the fifth round, I want to say David Morrell really kind of like had some of his best work. He was working the body, throwing good combinations, and that's what you kind of want to see from him. Kind of make adjustments in the middle of the fight, throw his jab. He got a nice stiff jab. But in the fifth round was his best round, and that's also the same round he got knocked down in. He got a little too cocky, a little too flashy, showboating a little too much in there, and Kataev caught him with a right hand over his guard, put him down. And after the knockdown, he had to really focus, pay attention, really had to lock in for this next couple of rounds because he only had 5 more rounds after that. So throughout 6 rounds, Kataev actually looked like the better boxer. He was beating Morrell to the punch. Kind of took this fight a little bit more serious, even though both his hands was down, his mouth was open when he was breathing. He looked gassed. Still was winning the fight to me all the way up into the 6th round. And then the 9th round is when both fighters really started to let their hands go. I really started to see David Morrell show like a sense of urgency in that 9th round and just kind of let everything go. And in the 10th round, both fighters finished strong. In my opinion, I feel like Kataev won. David Morrell finished with the win, walked away with a split decision victory. And in my opinion, I feel like Kataev won that fight. It's just my opinion, though. So the next fight after that ended up being Subriel Matias versus Alberto Pollo. 12 rounds, 140, super lightweight fight. And I know a little bit about Matias and Pollo. Pollo is more like a slick fighter. He can make adjustments in the middle of the fight, can use your aggression against you, stick and move type guy. And Matias is pretty much just a power punch you, if you ask me. I haven't really seen no real boxing skill from Matias, so I was interested in how Pollo was going to come out and play it. So Pollo came out and was throwing a lot of punches, and it seemed like his game plan was to use Matias' aggression against him and just pretty much fight him off of him. And it didn't really seem like a good game plan to exchange with a power puncher. And I wanted to see more of like sticking and moving and using the ring and staying off the ropes from Pollo. So early out, both fighters was exchanging a lot of punches. It really looked like it was going to be a brawl out there. And, Matias pretty much did the same thing I thought he was going to do, just head down, straightforward, bring the pressure, throw a lot of punches. I will say in like the 5th round, Matias started to go towards the body and kind of like frustrate Pollo a little bit. All the way up into the 7th is when I seen Pollo's his kind of demeanor kind of changed. He started to get a little frustrated, just started to throw punches. Looked gassed by the time it was the 7th round, which was crazy. And he tried to basically fight off Matias by throwing a lot of punches from Pollo. And like I said, instead of you just thinking you can just brawl with him, he should have just, maintained the distance, use his jab. Pollo got a nice jab. Should have used the jab and just kept sticking and moving. And throughout the first 8 rounds, the unofficial scorecard was 76-76. It was a close fight. Time it was the 10th round. Both fighters was pretty much just a brawling out throughout the whole fight, which really was an exciting fight. I kind of wanted to see more skill, more adjustments from Pollo, but I feel like he just thought that he had an advantage in throwing more punches than Matias. But Matias is flat-footed, head down, no skill for real, just one-dimensional, come straight forward, try to knock you out. And that's pretty much was his game plan, which is pretty much his game plan in every fight. I didn't really see Pollo make the adjustment of sticking and moving and trying to get off the ropes until like the last 3 rounds. And I feel like towards that time, it was kind of a little too late. So overall, it was pretty much like a good, exciting fight. Both fighters was exchanging a lot of punches, and that's kind of what you want to see. But I do think that Alberto Pollo is a way better boxer than what he showed and displayed. So Matias ended up winning it by majority decision. And I don't see how Matias won that fight. In my opinion, I feel like he lost. One dimensional, didn't really see much from that fight. So, he came away with the WBC belt. So the next fight ended up being Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. 12 rounds at 135 lightweight. And I was excited to see this fight because I wanted to see how Shakur is really going to play it. I know Zepeda throws like 100 punches around, and he really brings the pressure and brings the heat on everybody. So I really was excited to this fight because I want to see Shakur face a little bit of adversity and get tested, get his chin tested. He really can, withstand some real pressure and some real heat from a really good fighter. I think Zepeda was like 33 and 0 coming into this fight. So coming out this fight, Shakur was, he was letting his hands go. I was kind of surprised. I didn't really expect him to throw as many punches as he did. Of course, Zepeda came out with the pressure, working the body, trying to land the headshots. I kind of did see that Shakur was sitting on the ropes a little too much, sitting in the pocket, and it kind of seemed like a different type of Shakur that came out. And I was kind of excited, but at the same time, I was kind of concerned because I didn't want him to fight how Zepeda wanted him to fight, was pretty much just getting to a brawl with him instead of just using his jab, moving around the ring, using his feet. He probably was listening to the critics and most people who don't know boxing and felt like he had to stand in front of him and brawl with him. In the early rounds, I did notice that, Shakur was actually standing in the pocket. He was on the ropes a little too much. Like, it's cool to sit there and try to counter punch and get some punches and then get up out of there. But when you sit on the ropes for so long, you kind of turn the fight into how Zepeda wants the fight to go. So coming out in the third round, Zepeda hit Shakur with a really nice right hand and kind of knocked him off balance. It didn't really look like he was hurt, but it did. You could tell it like kind of knocked him off balance because of how he threw his left hand. So most people kind of probably thought Shakur was hurt, but it seemed like he just knocked him off balance. Zepeda timed him pretty good. It was a good shot. So coming out, it was a clear difference in hand speed and skill coming out into those later rounds like 4, 5, and 6. And that's what you kind of want to see from Shakur, display everything he can do against a one-dimensional fighter like Zepeda. And in the 7th round is when the fight kind of took off for Shakur, and he stopped letting Zepeda kind of walk him down and stood in front of him. And I seen Zepeda try to like bully him and push him around to the ropes, but Shakur kind of stood his ground and kind of pushed the fight in the middle of the ring. And that's when it was pretty much just BTA at that point. And Zepeda just pretty much couldn't do nothing with Shakur after that because it was a clear difference in hand speed and skill, timing, counter punching. And if Shakur had a little bit more power, he would have put Zepeda down. He was hitting him with some big shots, especially in the middle of that ring. So by the time it was the 10th round, Shakur was landing the more effective counter punches, landing his left and right hand, and the combinations is really what I wanted to see. Early off in the early rounds, you seen 1 or 2 punches, but when Shakur got to, putting 2, 3, 4 punches together, I really didn't see Zepeda really moving his head off the line of fire or anything, and it was clearly just a different level of skill that you had to have to compete with Shakur, and Zepeda just didn't have that. So throughout 12 rounds, it was a clear sweep to me. So Shakur ended up winning a unanimous decision, a BTA situation. So shout out to Shakur, that's my twin. And for the main event, it was Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Shiraz, 12 rounds, 168 super middleweight fight. So, in my opinion, like Edgar, he's like a funny dude. Like Berlanga, he's like, he can sell a fight, he flashy, he get the attention and stuff, but I don't really just believe in his boxing skill. I haven't really seen much from him, especially after that Canelo fight he had, and I didn't really see much from Berlanga. He talk a big game, but I haven't really seen anything from him. So early on, it was the early fill-out rounds. Both fighters throwing a nice jab, and Shiraz was a little bit more better than what I thought. He kind of came out, landing some good shots early on in the first like 3 rounds. I want to say good counter puncher too. Shiraz was really landing some good shots. In the 4th round is when Shiraz landed a big right hand that ended up putting Berlanga down. And I was super surprised. I thought Berlanga chin was better. He went a full 12 rounds with Canelo, only got dropped once. But in this fight, he got dropped twice in 1 round. So after the first knockdown in the 4th round, Shiraz ended up landing a right cross through his guard and put him down for the second time. Now, the second time looked way worse than the first time because he really couldn't barely stand and walk, and I thought he wasn't going to make it through the round. So it was really bad to see Berlanga go out like that. And then in the 5th round, the first left-right hand that landed, the referee ended up calling the fight off, and Shiraz ended up walking away with the TKO victory in the 5th round at his debut at 168 pounds. And I just didn't really expect Berlanga to go out like that. I thought he would put on a better performance. Um, it was really tough to watch, especially because it was in his hometown in New York, and him to go out like that is just really bad. So, this was an exciting fight week. This was also an exciting fight card. I want to see more people like this. I want to see more fights like this where fighters go in and just try to win. I don't want to see fighters run around the ring all the time. This was super exciting, and I'm excited to see some more fights. That will be all for my boxing recap. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. See y'all next time.